Speaking of things that are overdue, I think I'm right about this, and please correct me if you want to, that a lot of your floor speech time is like, hey, guys, we are the Republicans. We are in the majority. There's some stuff we're doing and we're trying to do, and that's all well and good. But there's a list of things that it seems that you believe we should have done by now or should be more ardent about, more conscientious about spending, about discipline, about just sort of take me through the list of things that you kind of scratch your head and wonder, we're in the majority. Why aren't we doing X, Y, Z?
Yeah, Mark, great. I mean, and this is such an important point because my colleagues get frustrated. But then I go home to Texas and I'll have dozens or hundreds of people pull me aside and say, thank you for what you said. I saw your speech. You're speaking for us. It just happened just yesterday morning before I flew out of Austin, coming back to D.C. A guy from San Antonio grew up in Laredo, and he says, the border's a mess. We're spending money we don't have. He goes, just thanks for speaking for us on the floor. And so I come, I'm sure this week some of my colleagues will say, that floor speech you gave, you're just giving fuel to Democrats. Well, let me be very clear. Yes, we have made some progress and done some good things. Yes, I'm not an idiot. I understand Democrats hold the Senate and the White House, but we're supposed to use the majority to do something, to get something done for the American people. Not everything, not the 50 things or 100 things that Mark Davis and Chip Roy would just write our prescription for America and get done, but pick one. That was my floor speech before Thanksgiving. It was, guys, can we just throw down and have a fight that we're actually going to cut spending? Can we actually throw down and have a fight that we're going to secure the border? Pick one, or at least those two out of the hundreds, right? You and I could go down the list, the Inflation Reduction Act and all of the energy, Green New Deal subsidies destroying the energy industry. We could talk about all the diversity, equity, inclusion, the wokeness, and we're fighting all those things to a degree in the House, but we can't get all of it. I understand, but let's pick a fight or two. Let's take it to the American people and win it. That's my point. We're supposed to, and frankly, our colleagues on the other side of the aisle do a much better job typically of using their thin majorities to accomplish their goals and moving the football down the field for them and their progressive agenda. We need to move the football field and football down the field for us and freedom, not just playing defense against their woke progressivism.
So you're right, and is it too glib to say that the Democrats have differences, but they tend to shelve them for the greater good and march in better lockstep than we do? Whereas in the Republican Party, we've got conservatives. We've got some folks who are not that conservative. Well, I believe we have some outright liberals. So we're just always going to have blood on the wall because we have Republicans who are not on board for a stronger border. We have Republicans who are simply not on board for spending reductions. All the Democrats are in favor of a weak border. All the Democrats are in favor of profligate spending. They have unity. We don't.
I think there's some element of truth to that. I mean, the one thing I would say in defense is that it's a lot easier to have unanimity if basically your overriding philosophy in life is, hey, here's more free crap. We're going to print more money, expand government, and give you all sorts of fake promises and start printing off money to give you dollars in programs. Mm-hmm. We're sitting back trying to say, guys, we need to constrain spending. We still need to have a strong economy with appropriate tax rates that will drive that. We need to have sovereignty and a secure border. All of these things that take tough work and that we're supposed to be doing. And that makes it to where if we just lose a few, it's really hard for us to do because we have no help from Democrats. I mean, not one Democrat, even my friends there. I've done a few bipartisan bills with Democrats, but man, on most of this stuff, on the things that we care about, we can't get anybody to join us. So if we lose 5 or 10 Republicans, then we get stuck. So what we did the first half of this year was we actually created a pretty good amount of unanimity about getting the border bill done with H.R. 2, the Limit, Save, Grow, which would have increased the debt ceiling, but would have been responsible in how we would have constrained government. The NDAA, which is the Defense Authorization Bill, was a really good conservative bill that pushed back on all the DEI and critical race theory and abortion, tourism, transgender surgeries to refocus our military. They were good bills, but now we need to do something to fight our Democratic counterparts in the Senate. And here's the trick. Too many of my Republican colleagues will say, well, Chip, you don't understand. The NDAA, we passed it for 62 years. You have to authorize defense. So sorry, we're just going to have to do it. Chip, we just have to fund the government. We can't have a shutdown. Chip, we just have to fund Ukraine. There was a promise back in the 90s or something. We've got to do Ukraine. Guys, I understand the impulses, but we've got to use the leverage that we have to force change. If they want dollars for Ukraine, in my opinion, the condition precedent for that, to even have a debate about it, to even mention the word Ukraine, is secure American border. That's it. You secure our border. Now let's put a Ukraine bill on the floor and decide. I might still vote against it, but I'm kind of okay with us having a full debate on the floor. But don't even put it on the floor, Speaker Johnson, if we haven't secured the border of the United States, because our priority is America.
And that's what a million people say every day is, wait a minute, they're asking me to wring my hands about the Ukrainian border. And of course we want the bad Russian guys thrown out of Ukraine. That'd be
Correct.
Great if they, but we won't even secure our own. And you're asking me for endless blank checks. All right. You invoke Speaker Johnson. We haven't spoken since the whole Kevin McCarthy out. Yep. Let's try Jim Jordan. Whoops, that didn't work. Now we have Mike Johnson. Sure. What were the lessons of that entire episode?
Well, it goes back a little bit to these differences that I say within our Republican conference, right? I mean, I was engaged in January to try to force changes that resulted in the list of those positive things that I think happened this year, where we had more influence and we passed some really good bills. But now when push came to shove and we got to the funding of the government time, some of my colleagues thought Kevin wasn't doing enough. I wasn't one of them at that point. I thought we needed some more runway to finish the job. Mm-hmm. So I didn't go down the road of the motion to vacate in September. Mm-hmm. Some of my colleagues did, so we ended up where we ended up. Now you go through all the stuff in October when we had some debate about it. I think one lesson is everybody freaking out about not having a speaker is much about nothing. I mean, honestly, like the country keeps doing its thing. They go to work, they go do their job, they go to school. We just need to do our thing up here to get the right result. So now you get Mike Johnson. Mike is a superhuman being. He's a good man. I know him well. He represents Northwest Louisiana. My mom grew up in that district. He's a devout family man, a devout man of devotion to God. And he's a conservative, constitutional conservative. You know, but now it's game time. And I've been telling Mike, like, look, we've got to get our job done. And I'm going to hold you to the same standard I was holding Kevin or anybody else. And I would expect people to hold me if I were in the job. And we've got to deliver. We've got to cut spending year over year. We got to secure the border. You can't just give in to the powers in this town. Now, the one last point that I want the listeners to hear is all of this is in the context of me wanting to achieve what they sent us there to go achieve in a tough environment. But I will say, we've been keeping the football on our side of the field. We've been talking all year about spending restraint. We've been talking all year about the need to secure the border. We haven't let the Dems in the Senate or anybody advance any radical leftist agenda through Congress. And Biden is pretty recalcitrant in working with us on anything. So to some degree, we have the environment that we have. But Republicans should use the few tools that we have as leverage. And that's my recommendation to Speaker Johnson. Use the Ukraine leverage, use the government funding leverage to get the core things they sent us there to do. And that's border security and constraint in spending.
Congressman Chip Roy is here, 21st District of Texas. Talked about military funding and pick and choosing your battles, et cetera. Are you a fan or not a fan of Senator Tuberville holding up an admitted bunch of military promotions in order to get the Pentagon out of the abortion tourism business?
So I think Coach Tuberville, as we often call him, has been doing a great job because it has highlighted an issue for the American people that they're often oblivious to. Mm-hmm. That their tax dollars are going to social engineering, not just, by the way, the abortion tourism business, which is what that specific holdup is about, mm-hmm. transgender surgeries, mountains of diversity, equity, inclusion, mountains of critical race theory, remaking the military in a social engineered image for the radical left and their cultural agenda. So what Tuberville is doing, just to be clear, I want everybody to understand, he's demanding that when the president nominates someone for a high military post, that the Senate vote on that individual. That's literally all he's doing. Mm-hmm. Normally, the way we do this in this massive government we have, because we have so many positions, is they agree to do a lot of those military positions by what's called unanimous consent. Mm-hmm. What that means is you're supposed to go to the floor as a member of the Senate, or not go to the floor, but basically consent to it being passed by, quote, unanimous consent. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm sorry. The Senate's, it assumes that, but my vote matters. So if you're a senator and you say, guys, I'm not going to give you my consent unless you do something to change the policy where, in this case, President Biden is violating the law to allow taxpayer dollars to fund abortion tourism. That is the sending of our military personnel around the country to go get abortions depending on the laws of the state. Mm-hmm. So that's the point. That's what he's doing. He's highlighting an issue. And I applaud him for it.
Good for you. Absolutely.
And
I know it's easy to wring our hands on. My friend Hugh Hewitt is like, oh, these military people, God bless the military. Please, we're all pro-military. Right. But this is a battle that needs to be fought.
Yep.
About 2-3 minutes left, because I wanted to get some word in here. It's a big next few days for a guy who you're a big fan of, who you want to be the next president, Ron DeSantis. He goes toe-to-toe with Gavin Newsom on Sean Hannity this week. Yeah. And then the whole debate. Tell everybody, I want to get this right, too. As a conservative, you had requisite appreciation for a lot of things Trump did, but all other things being equal, you think DeSantis is the best bet to beat Biden. Tell me why.
Yeah, well, look, Governor DeSantis is a friend, and you just said it. I have enormous respect for what President Trump accomplished in his 4 years, from moving the embassy to Jerusalem to, working to secure the border after, by the way, it got a little open, and a lot of the policies you and I would agree on, the economy and so forth. But Governor DeSantis has proven himself a cut above everybody in terms of what he's been able to execute and get accomplished in Florida. What we would have said was a purple state a mere 2 to 4 years ago. He won by 1.5 million votes. I want everybody listening to pause and think about that. Governor DeSantis won Florida by 1.5 million votes. He won Hispanics with 62% of the vote. He won 50% of single female voters. He flipped Dade County. Remember back in, all the stuff back in Bush v. Gore and all that? What he has done in terms of transforming Florida and making a destination state, causing people to move there, low taxes, fighting crime, standing up against Fauci and the entire medical tyranny complex, what he has done to combat Disney and wokeism, taking on the higher ed and the universities, passing a strong abortion bill. And let me be very clear. President Trump was kind of dismissive of that. And let's be very clear. Governor Haley, with all due respect, is trying to take advantage of the fact that some establishment donors isn't comfortable. They aren't comfortable with Governor DeSantis standing up and fighting on those issues, those icky cultural issues. Governor DeSantis turned down millions, hundreds of millions of dollars from mega donors who wanted him to sell his soul, not to support abortion. That man is a man of courage and conviction. I would go into battle anywhere with him. He served in the United States military. His wife, Casey, is a star. He's a star. He's a strong conservative. He can serve for 8 years. I want this country to march forward, beat liberals. I want to win overwhelmingly the Senate and the House next year. I think he's the guy to do it. I'll support our nominee. Everybody out there listening needs to calm down. But we have primaries for a reason. Don't be afraid of them. We'll go out there, sell your message, and then whoever wins, we'll go ride that horse.
There you go.
But I support Governor DeSantis proudly.
In 60 seconds, another battle that you have some familiarity with, and we'll be real brief and maybe talk about it more if we need to. There have been times when you have not been a fan of your prior boss, Ken Paxton. What did you think of the adventure of impeachment? Because no matter what you think about Ken, that impeachment was weird. It seemed cobbled together. He prevailed overwhelmingly in the Senate. Did that go the way it should have gone?
Look, the Attorney General and I've been public. We had some disagreements in the past. At the end of the day, the House did what they did with a fairly overwhelming vote. They presented a case and the Senate went the other way. That process, I think Governor Perry, a good friend of yours and mine, wrote an op-ed, I believe, in the Wall Street Journal in August when everybody was kind of freaking out about it all. And he said, look, let the process play out. The House went through. They thought that they had a certain amount of evidence that was concerning. I believe that they laid out a case of some things that were concerning. The Senate took that information in. They made a calculation about whether or not it rose to the level of conviction, and they chose not to do it. And then we'll kind of see how these other various trials and tribulations play out. Right now, I think we got to just keep marching forward for Texas. The Attorney General's got to keep defending Texas in the court. I hope he can keep attracting talent to the AG's office. Obviously, I was the first Assistant Attorney General. We had a hell of a great team there, fighting a lot of great litigation, defending Texas and marching forward. And so I hope that office will continue to do so. It's a really important office with like 4,000 employees and a fairly significant budget, carrying out child support, defending the state. It's got 700 lawyers, doing a whole heck of a lot of important work for the state of Texas. So we'll hope they'll be able to continue to do that going forward. That path has brought Chip Roy to the Congress, where he seeks to stay in the 21st District. Roy.house.gov is the congressional website. The Twitter X feed is at ChipRoyTX. Always a joy, sir. Thank you, and Merry Christmas to you. We may chat between now and the end of the year. I hope we do, because it's always a pleasure. Merry Christmas to you, my friend. God bless. Congressman Chip Roy.